City.
The New World Order.
Those are the roots of trouble.
I imagine that right now you're feeling a bit like Alice, tumbling down the rabbit hole. Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life. That there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind, driving you mad. It is this feeling that has brought you to me. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of election, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. But I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people.
And now, welcome to another episode of Down the Rabbit Hole. Here's your host from federaljack.com. It's Popeye.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another live edition. It is June 17th, 2013, Monday edition of Down the Rabbit Hole. And as you know, the initial first segment here of the broadcast is always very, very short. It's about 2 minutes. So we got a quick break coming up in about 2 minutes. We got it coming up, and it's only going to be about 59 seconds, and we come back into that nice long segment. So really quick, I'm going to bring my guest up and introduce her, and then we'll get into the details of tonight's broadcast on the other side of the quick break. But first, let me introduce my guest. I have been trying to find someone to talk about the BP oil spill for a very long time, and my guest was recommended to me by one of the listeners, and I contacted her, asked her if she'd be willing to talk about the BP oil spill, the health effects, what's going on, and she is down, and she's going to blow your mind tonight, ladies and gentlemen. So let me bring her up really quick before the break sneaks up on us. Trisha Springstead. Trisha, welcome to the broadcast, and thank you so much for coming on.
And thank you so much for having me. There are so many things that we need to talk about and that we need to understand about this oil spill. And this was the tipping point. It was absolutely the tipping point for changes that are going on universally. And I'm blessed. You know, I'm so blessed. I have so many good friends out there that care and that want to make the change. And we are the ones here that need to make the change. But there is a lot of background information that people need to know. They need to know that we have been hoodwinked, that we have been used, that we have been lied to, and you know, things need to change.
I agree.
The EPA needs to change. I'm very blessed to work with a wonderful man. His name is Hugh Kaufman. He's up in D.C. He's a whistleblower for the EPA. And, you know, we are really blessed because we have people that do care and that want to make a difference.
And we need to pay attention to what's going on. We need to. I don't even know if you could stop the damage. Try to, at this point, it's mitigated as much as possible. But I don't even know, how possible that is. I'm going to cut us off right there because the break is going to sneak up on us. Ladies and gentlemen, 59 short, quick seconds. When we get back, nice, long segment with my guest tonight, Trisha, and we're going to get into the BP oil spill, the health effects, and more. Stay tuned.
I know
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back, and let's dive right into the meat of the subject, the BP oil spill. I don't even want to call it a spill. Let's call it a leak, because that's really what it is. It's not like
I think we should call it a big dumping ground.
Well, that's basically what the Gulf has become. I mean, they've really screwed up the ecosystem. So, what are the health effects? Because I know there's a lot of effects to the food chain and everything else, and we're going to cover all that. But right off the bat, I want to get into the meat of the subject, because this is one of the things I've been wanting to expose. Trisha, what are the health effects to the people on the coast?
God. Well, let me just go back to something that I wrote a long time ago, and it was actually, I was up in Gulf Shores. And I was up in, I mean, this is insane. I was married to a physician. I was married to a doctor. And I started really at first I started getting involved in a disease that they call Morgellons disease, but it's really hypertoxicity. And then what happened was the oil spill happened. And I sat back, and I said, I cannot walk away from this. I can't walk away from it. I cannot not say anything, and I've got to get up there and see what was going on. So it was in January. The spill happened in April, May, June. I was up in Gulf Shores, and I was up in Grand Isle, and I was up in all over the place trying to find, samples. Because I was working with people that were kind of renegades, and they said, well, listen, we could probably bioremediate this, and out of California. So anyways, they said, well, just go up and get us some samples. I had no idea what I was going to be walking into. I got up to Gulf Shores. And I was in Pensacola, and then that was right after Obama made his speech. But what people don't know is that Obama was not in Pensacola. What he did was he went into Panama City, and he stood in the water in Panama City. And how I found this out was I went to Panama City, and I interviewed the people that worked in a Marriott in Panama City. And they said, yes, that Obama was there, Michelle Obama was there, the kids were there, and Obama did not even go into the Gulf. He went into a lagoon in Panama City. Now that right there, and I should have been an investigative journalist, because I can go in, I can talk to the people, I can find out what's going on there. I can just get right in and dig in with these people. And I did it on my time and my dime. So what happened was I began to find out more and more and more about the lies and the cover-up. Now, the thing that's very interesting to me, and I've been researching this for years, is that when the well exploded, I was really researching a disease pandemic called Morgellons, but it's really not the name of the disease. It's really hypertoxicity. And I was very curious. So anyways, what happened was, as I was looking at all this stuff, I met Ricky Ott. Now, Ricky Ott is really an amazing person in that how do you find out what's going on in a town that has problems? I mean, how do you really find out? You have to get in there with the people. You have to understand what they're telling you. So here I was, and I was with a videographer and a friend of mine, and we were in Panama City, and so we met a guy that worked for he had a restaurant corporation, and I said, I am looking for samples of this. All I wanted was samples. That's all I wanted, buddy. And so here I go into this region, and where do you find out what's going on? You go to the local bar. That's how you find out what was going on. So here I was in a local bar in Panama City, and there were to the right of me, there were guys that were working the oil spill. To the left of me, there was middle management. And the middle management people were just, flaunting their BP lighters and all this crap. And I knew something was going on. So what happened was the next day, I went to Gulf Shores, and Ron Mott was standing on the bridge of MSNBC. And I said, I was told that there was oil here. Where in the hell is the oil? And he said they covered it up. And I said, well, I have samples. I have, I have my jars. I have my silver container. I have everything. And I can't even get out there and get anything. And he said, I have to wait. Ron Mott of MSNBC told me I have to wait for the governor and whoever he was of Gulf Shores, the mayor of Gulf Shores, to show up. And then I knew I was in a mess. So then I went to Orange Beach. I'm in Orange Beach, and here I am, and here I am, and I'm digging in the sand, and I'm getting all these samples, and I'm putting in this special glass. It's called Miron glass, because no UVB or UVA light can get through that. So we can really take care of that. So here I am. I'm getting all these samples. I put them in the back of my truck, and all of a sudden, I get a white van to the left of me and a white van to the right of me, and then I got the cops behind me. And they came up to me, and they said to me, what do you have in the car? And I said, what do you mean, what do I have in the car? And they said, you were seen on that beach collecting samples. And I said, and who watched me? And they said, well, it really doesn't matter, but what do you have in the car? And I said, you know what? It's none of your business. Do you have a search warrant? Really? Do you have a search warrant? And they said, well, no. And I said, well, if you don't have a search warrant, then leave me alone. And then I got very foul, and I said, if you don't have a search warrant, then fuck off. And they kept at me, and they kept at me, and finally I said, you guys, you need to back off me. You really need to back off me, because I'm an independent, seventh-generation American, and there is no reason why I need to be hassled here on this beach. It's a public beach. So back off. And it was with my big mouth that the cops backed off, and then I can't tell you. I have other people that will tell you. Was it BP that was with them, or was it the Coast Guard, or who was with them? Who was in the white vans? You know what? I don't know, but I swear to God, these guys had black uniforms. They had black uniforms. I don't know if they were BP, but I swear to God, they were a shadow military force. And if I didn't have a big mouth, then I would have never gotten out of that. And then the cops were with them. They were right there with them. And it could have been contractors, and then the cops are there. Yeah, and I swear to God, they probably were. And then when I was driving up and down there, I saw these strange bands. Now I'm an RN, and I have a master's in biology, and I'm an RN, and I have always been about doing the right thing for people. But then when I started seeing ambulances, and they had this really, it was like UN ambulances. There's no other way that I can explain that. It was UN ambulances. So then what happened after that was I started getting involved in Apalachicola. And we were having, Apalachicola is shut down. Apalachicola is dead. We have no oysters. Then we go to Cedar Key. And, I live in Crystal River in Florida. I'm not going to give anybody my address. But I live in Crystal River, and now Cedar Key is shut down. There's no oysters. We have lost all of our oysters. And everybody says, well, it's because of the salinity of the water, or it's because of this. And I'm telling you, very early on, many fishermen called me from Louisiana, and they said, we saw the really bad stuff. And I said, what? The really bad stuff? And they said, yeah. And I said, well, spell it for me. And they spelled SILICONE, tetrafluoride. Now, you look that up. That's what they used to sink the Corexit, to sink the oil. Silicon tetrafluoride was used to sink all that.
So it's not just Corexit and oil. There's other chemicals along with them that are floating around in the Gulf.
Yes, sir. And if you look up, and I filed an FOIA about silicon tetrafluoride, and then I find out, then here I am, I'm digging into all this garbage, and I'm finding out that, the bottom line is that 5 agencies that were spraying those dispersants fell under the Department of Commerce. The rest of them fell under the Department of the Treasury. And I have videos and photos of the Air Force spraying this stuff. Now, I live in Crystal River. 12 miles up from me, I'm in contact with family, and they said, listen, they sprayed in our area. Now, in that area, and that's 12 miles up from me, and these poor people are sick to this day. They're sick, and nobody's ever followed up. And that's been my issue the whole time. Why has nobody followed up with these people? So here I follow up with these people. They're still sick. They live in Homosassa, and they had Corexit sprayed in their pool. Now, if you look at Corexit, oh my God, just look at tubutoxyethanol. Tubutoxyethanol in itself is very dangerous. And I can pull you up research from Sorensen and tubutoxyethanol. Now, this makes a lot of sense, and this is why a lot of these people are sick. If they're going to say, okay, it's tubutoxyethanol and propylene glycol. I'm an inventor. I invent skincare, blah, blah, blah. But the bottom line is I know the dangers of tubutoxyethanol, and I know the dangers of propylene glycol. But if you look at tubutoxyethanol in itself, and you look at Sorensen's work, and that's an amazing piece of work, and I can explain how this can be toxic. If you...
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to cut you off, Trisha, because we got a break sneaking up on us. So what I'll have you do is I'll have you explain how this stuff is toxic and horrific to the human body on the other side of the break, because we'll have about a nice 6-minute segment to get further into it. So hold that thought right there. Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. We will be right back. This stuff's important to know because this crap is still floating around out in the Gulf. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. We got about 5 minutes before the next break comes up. Trisha, I want to get right back into it. 2BE. Why is it toxic and what is it?
Well, they call it tubutoxyethanol or 2BE. And it's very simple. I mean, I taught nursing and I taught, high school kids, and I've been an RN for years. But if you think about it, cubitalxy-ethanol, that's in, this is crazy, but it's in simple green. It's a chemical in simple green. And so you think about this.
Is it a degreaser?
Now, yeah. And it's dangerous. I mean, it's dangerous. They have been spraying this stuff for years. But let me tell you about cubitalxy-ethanol, okay? Sorensen, and I'll send all this stuff over to you later on so that you can see my research. But Sorensen wrote an article on cubitalxy-ethanol. And this is very, very simple, and I'm going to help people understand this. If at 30% humidity, which, that's very low humidity, in ambient air, just in air, the skin can absorb 2-butoxyethanol. And as it absorbs 2-BE, now this is just one of the minor players in this gig, but the skin, your capillaries in your hands and in your feet and in your skin, what they do when you go in that water and there's 2-BE in that water, what it does is it absorbs, and when it absorbs, you have to realize that the capillaries of the skin absorb, and capillaries go to veins. Veins carry blood to the heart. Okay? Very simple. Okay. So when it carries this chemical to the heart, then what happens is these people get rapid heartbeats. They get all these strange symptoms. They get AFib, BFib. They can get anything. But then it goes to the lungs, all right? 2-BE also ushers in benzene, methane, xylenes, all kinds of chemicals, okay? So then now you're ushering in benzene, which is just such a carcinogen, xylenes, hexanes, all kinds of chemicals.
So this stuff actually helps your skin absorb all these other harmful, crappy chemicals?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. It opens up the skin and the lungs to absorb all this horrible stuff. Okay? So then what happens is that it goes, your veins carry your blood to the heart. So if it carries the blood to the heart, then what happens is then it goes into the lungs via the pulmonary artery, okay? So it goes into the lungs, and the lungs cannot compete with all these toxins. So here you have, the lungs are screaming for oxygen. They're dying for oxygen, but the toxins take over the O2. So when that happens, then you have all these heavy metals, all this benzene, xylene, hexane, you name it, and they're competing for oxygen, and the lungs can't compete for it. So then what happens is it goes into the systemic circulation. It goes into the arterial circulation, which carries blood away from the heart, and then it goes into the arteries, and then now these guys have heart problems, lung problems, they have chemical pneumonitis, they have numbing and tingling, they're getting seizures. Paul Doom. I mean, look up Paul Doom. That guy was having seizures like you would not believe. And this guy, I'm surprised really that he's alive. And so then
Trisha,
I'm
going to cut us off right there. I want you to hold that thought because that next break is sneaking up on us.
Okay.
As always, when there's good information flowing. The time just flies right by. So hold that
Sorry,
thought right there.
I'm you crazy.
No, you're doing a great job, sweetie. Thank you so much for coming on. Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. We will be right back. Do not go anywhere. All right, we are back, ladies and gentlemen. So, Trisha, I want you to finish up with your thought that you got cut off going into the break there. And I want to stay focused as much as we can on the health issues and conditions of the people, what they're experiencing. So I want you to take as much time as you think you need, because we have like 14 minutes in this segment. So take as much time and go into as much detail about the health conditions and the health problems that are now popping up that the government and BP say, oh, there isn't any.
There are. And the problem is that first of all, there's few people I really need to thank, some great scientists. There's Rip Kirby and my friend Harry Rabin of On the Wave Productions in Santa Barbara. And I graduated from UCSB with these guys. And I also want to thank, there's so many people to thank. There's Rip Kirby, there is Louisiana Environmental Action Network, although I don't agree with what they're doing, in order to detox these people, but that's just my opinion. Thirdly, there's Harry Rabin of On the Wave Productions. I went to school with him. We have really gotten together through all this. Then there's HBO. I'm working with some wonderful, wonderful people at HBO London, and what they've done is they really put out their first movie was on the Diebold election voting scams. And these guys are great. Simon, those guys are wonderful. I want to thank Kendra Arneson. She has given up her life for this. And then there's some amazing scientists that are really trying to tell us the truth. And we're really trying to dig at the truth. But the problem is, and I'm going to explain this to you. What happens is that if you look at Rip Kirby's work, Rip Kirby was funded by Surfriders. And I taught the science of the spill at the University of South Florida with Pam Vigera, who's, an environmental person, and also, I really tried to warn scientists at the very beginning what was going on. And so what happens is that these people become so toxic that, it gets into their brain. They get brain fogged, horrible brain fogged. They become bloated. Why did they become bloated? Well, they become bloated because of the effects of butyroxyethanol, but then we're also looking at propylene glycol in heavy doses that we know of. These are the things we know of. But then when you're dumping silicon tetrafluoride on top of all this garbage, then these people's, basically what's happening is these people's blood are turning to gas. And it's sad. Now, so then we go back, and I go back, and I keep going back. I keep going back to Cheney. Okay? Now, if you look at there was an acoustic switch that could have averted the disaster. And Kennedy, actually, in 2000, said that Materials Management Service, while weighing really a comprehensive rulemaking for drilling safety, deemed an acoustic mechanism essential and proposed to mandate that the mechanism of Gulf oil rigs, okay? So between January and March of 2001, incoming Vice President Dick Cheney conducted secret meetings with over 100 oil industry officials, and they allowed them to draft a wish list of industry demands to be implemented by the very oil-friendly administration, and that's Bush and Cheney. So Cheney used his time basically to restaff the Minerals Management Service with oil industry toadies and a cable of Wyoming carbon cronies. So in 2003, the newly reconstituted Minerals Management Service genuflected to the oil cartel. So if you combine all that with a massive cell share-offs by Tony Hayward and at least 4 other directors, former EPA, actually Jeannie Pascal was amazing, but she was unsuccessful in debarring BP for the last 12 years, and the powers that be were blocking her. Then there was clear bathymetric data and geological evidence that the Macondo wells were the worst possible location to drill safely and the best possible location to look for trouble. Then we had multiple near-disaster minuses out of well control situations and so many things on the way to disaster. Then we had Halliburton that bought out Boots and Coots for $240.4 million on 12 April, 8 days before the blowout. So you stockpile millions of barrels of Corexit, and that's all about, that basically, Corexit was all about Rodney Chase, who sits on the board of Nalco, and was also a BP board member, and he held shares in both companies that was very high. So it wasn't just nepotism, it was a for-profit choice. Now, I have photographs, and I can send those photographs to you, and I will send those to you, from this creep that he should have given those photographs to the government. He should have shown those photographs. But this guy wanted to make money on those photographs, and I have them. And you can see where the guys that were working on the and we can go even deeper in this. You go into Schwest Offshore Marine. Schwest Offshore Marine. Now you look up Gary Schwest. Gary Schwest he bought the Louisiana I can't remember the name of their basketball team, but he bought a Louisiana team. And all of our Republicans, every Republican he was on their payroll. That's Gary Schwest. Now this is one of the biggest boaters, and he was British Petroleum's #1. Gary Schwest was British Petroleum's #1 boat company. Schwest Offshore Marine. And then we can go a little bit deeper into that, and I can tell you that we have a little problem with Schlumberger, which is another offshore marine boating company. Now let me tell you, these guys are worth billions. And they have bought off the RNC. They have bought off all of our southern Republican people. But not only did they buy off those people, but they also bought off Elijah Cummings. Elijah Cummings is with the Democratic National Convention, and Elijah Cummings is one of the heads of maritime law. These guys are all in it. It has been collusion from the beginning. Now, in the 70s, I can tell you, I fought offshore oil and nuclear. I fought it with Jackson Brown, with Bonnie Raitt, with all these people in Santa Barbara. I was fighting that stuff for years, and we could have changed that. But the sad thing about all this is, And the thing that really breaks my heart, now they're headed toward fracking. They're going to frack Florida.
Are you kidding me? They're actually going to wait. Where in northern Florida they're going to frack, or central? Or
they're
south?
fracking. They're trying to frack Naples right now.
How are you going to? Isn't most of Florida at least South Florida, coral? I mean, that I don't. Wow, they're going to cause problems down here.
They're causing big problems, and I have an attorney in Florida that I'm working with that gets it. But I'm telling you, now they're trying to frack Naples, and they're trying to frack Florida. Now, they go in and they start fracking and oil drilling Florida. Look at the mess we have here right now.
Is it BP?
And that is Rick Scott. Rick Scott is so on the payroll.
He's a criminal.
He's a criminal. He's a con. And let me tell you about Rick Scott. I'll give you a little story about that son of a bitch. Excuse my language. But I worked for HCA, Columbia, and I worked in the home health care division. And it was right before Rick Scott, he basically, what he did was he walked away from HCA Columbia with millions of dollars. Then HCA got gigged with billions in Medicare fraud fines. And about the time that Rick Scott was supposed to, he was running for governor, I was fighting him every step of the way. I was calling everybody I knew at HCA Columbia and saying, Matt Lohman, you know what Rick Scott did. I need you to step up. And nobody stepped up. Nobody stepped up. And then he took all these, then he owns Solano Labs. This guy is screwing up our state so badly that it's disgusting. And now he is letting all these corporations buy out pristine lands in the state of Florida. If he could eat manatee, he would. That guy is one sick sucker. Which brings me a little deeper into this, and we'll talk about this later. This is really bringing me into that we're dealing with a lot of Scientology here. We'll talk about that another time.
He's not a Scientologist, is he?
I think he's headed for it, and I think he is.
Oh, God.
I think a lot of these...
Great, so Xenu is going to be in the State House in Florida. That's great.
We got to stop these Scientologists. I'm sorry. I got sucked in by these suckers. I was sucked in by them very early on. And they took all my research. They took everything I had. But I'm telling you what, and you may get a lot of shit for this, but I'm going to tell you, Scientology is really going to be the ruination of this state and this globe. They're dangerous. They're very dangerous. And there's another thing I need to talk to you about, and that's that there's a woman very early on. We could have changed this whole mess. We could have fixed this. We could have bioremediated it. But there's a woman named Deborah Dupre.
Hold, you know what? I'm gonna cut us off right there because we got the break sneaking up on us. But I wanted to ask you about that, about bioremediation. I'm actually glad you brought that up because that's actually something I had wanted to ask you about. And if that was actually, if they even wanted to look at that as a viable option, or
I know the best bioremediation.
All right, cool. So hold that thought, ladies and gentlemen. Don't go anywhere. Break sneaking up. We'll be back in just a few short minutes. Don't go anywhere. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Final segment of the first hour, but we still have hour number 2 coming up, so don't go anywhere. Trisha, really quick, before we, you get back into what you were discussing before we came up to the break there, I want you to go ahead and throw out some the websites or links or the places that people can go research the stuff that we're talking about tonight, because I know there's a lot of this information that we're throwing out there, and I'm sure a lot of people are going, what, huh? So I know you know where a lot of this info is buried that they can go do the research to, so go ahead. We got about 5 minutes, so you can get do that and then get into what you're talking about.
There's a website that everybody can go to, and it's called www.attempts-to-silence-the-independent-voices-of-truth.com. Then there's another website. If you go to Rents, my paper, and actually the National Public Health Alert wrote a paper, and it's called The Toxic Environmental Terrain and Its Effects on Life. Just Google that, and it'll pull up. I also work with. I'm working with some really good people. I'm working with Luis Miranda. Luis Miranda is out of Brazil, and he picks up anything. He picks up any truth that I give him. And his name is Luis Miranda, and you can Google my name, Trisha Springstead, plus The Real Agenda, and you'll find out what's going on in Brazil. Then I work with Mr. Common Sense. Just Google Mr. Common Sense, Mundane Approach. You can also Google, if you want to know about how to treat what's going on, everybody needs to Google www.metametrics.com. Metametrics.com, very early on, I went to metametrics.com. I went to actually Atlanta, and I took their courses in environmental toxicology. We can cure this. And it's with the use of glutathione. It's with the use of very, very simple, detoxification methods. But we also need to get everybody on far infrared sauna. We also need to change our fertilizers. And I'm working with a woman named Dory Bond in fertilizer. And I also work with a guy named Kevin Horton of Horton Environmental. We can bioremediate water. We can take filthy, dirty water, and we can bioremediate it and take all of the chemicals and everything out of that water and turn it into basically H2O. And this is what people don't understand, that there are solutions to pollution. There's another guy that everybody needs to really get to know. His name is Jay Tooks, Tooks. He has I'm very solution oriented, and he has it's called 10millionpeople.com. We can take methane, we can take plastics, we can take all kinds of chemicals, and we can turn them into an alcohol-based fuel. Because most people can't afford the new cars that are coming out that basically come off the non-alcohol grid or the non-chemical grid, and I love Tesla's theories, but it's very expensive to buy a Tesla car. So right now we are in a position where we can change this. We can take all these chemicals and all the rubber and all the plastics and all the garbage, and we can make a difference here if we can turn it into alcohol-based fuel. So go to 10millionpeople.com. There are solutions to pollution. So we all need to work together in love, and we all need to work together in light. And we all need to realize there are solutions. And I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't know there were solutions.
Well, I'm glad to know that there are things, that there are ways to use all this garbage, and it can be put to actual good use and not pollute. I mean, that's actually like real recycling as opposed to the faux recycling that people do. I'm going to cut us off right there because the top of the hour is sneaking up on us. But ladies and gentlemen, don't go anywhere. We'll be back in exactly 59 seconds. When we get back, hour number 2, we're going to get into a bunch of things still related to BP, including the strange deaths of whistleblowers, activists, people that were giving the real information about what was going on. So stay tuned. You don't want to miss hour 2. And I want to talk more about solutions, too, because you all know I'm solution-oriented. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with hour number 2 here on tonight's live edition of Down the Rabbit Hole. I am your host, Popeye, from FederalJack.com. It is June 17th, 2013. Tonight, I am spending a second hour talking to my guest, Trisha Springstead. We've been discussing the BP oil spill and all the some of the things related to it, the health issues, the chemicals, some of the background of some of the stuff that was going on. Last hour, she gave out a bunch of websites to go do a lot of the research herself. I'll have her give out all the links again. But I want to ask her a question because we have a quick, short segment here, Trisha, in the beginning here. So, excuse my dry throat there. But I want to ask you this because we were talking about solutions before. And we can get into we have a nice long segment coming up. I want to pick your brain about the strange deaths and everything associated with the BP oil leak. That's what it really should be called, the massive oil leak that they had, not a spill. But I want to ask you about, quickly, solutions. Is there a way now, I mean, now it's been, 2+ years. Is there a way that they could, I don't know how much damage you could mitigate now, but is there a way that you could do any type of damage control naturally, or are we kind of screwed now that they sunk it to the bottom of the Gulf?
You know what? I think that what my goal is, and this is what I'm headed for. I live in the state of Florida. I'm smart enough to know that we need somebody that can oversee the EPA. So my goal, and this sounds really crazy, but this is what I'm planning on doing. My goal, I'm an inventor, I'm a patented inventor. I know about organics, I know about GMOs, I know about all that stuff. But I know that I could make a difference. So my goal is, and I'm trying to I'm going to be working with the Green Party, with Jill Stein, and I believe that, that with my education and what I know, that I could go to work for the EPA. Now, it may drive me absolutely crazy, but if I don't do something, then I'm part of the problem. So really what I'm basically asking the people of Florida is to push me. Basically just push it. Because I'm gonna put in, actually what I'm gonna do is I'm working with Hugh Kaufman in DC. I love this man. And everybody needs to friend Hugh Kaufman because he gets what's going on. He's been an EPA whistleblower for years. And I believe in solutions. So in order to be part of an effective solution, then what I need to do is put in my hat and submit my curriculum vitae to the EPA in the state of Florida. In so that, I'm never going to get elected, I'm never going to get nominated, or never going to even get the job in the state of Florida with Rick Scott on helm. But
well, he's a crook. I'm going to cut us off right there and make you hold that thought because the first break of the second hour is sneaking up on us. Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. Exactly 59 short seconds, and Trisha and I will be right back. Do not go anywhere. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. So we have a nice long segment. So, Trisha, from what I gather, what you're trying to say is you'd like to be the head of the EPA in Florida. So I understand that you have the credentials background from what you've done, but if I was someone like a listener that you wanted to support you, we'll say, if I was one of the listeners, and I said to you, well, okay, I live in Florida, and we could start some sort of drive or whatever to get you in, but why should we? What could you do? What's the first solution right off the top of your head that you could throw out there that we could start to A, clean up the Gulf, and B, start to help the people that are being affected by this?
Well, the first thing, if I could, just to even get into the EPA, I would work with small businesses. And the small businesses that I work with are amazing. I work with a woman named Dory Bond, and she's sustainable agriculture. I work with Kevin Horton, who's with Horton Environmental. There is not a boat that we can't clean up. There's not a waterway that we can't clean up. There's not a pond we can't clean up. There's not a crack house that we can't clean up. We can clean up mercury. We can clean up anything. And I wouldn't even be on this show if I didn't have solutions to pollution. And then I work with Jay Tooks, who's amazing, and we can get alcohol-based fuel. They will come into our state. We can make money. We can create green jobs for people. We are the solution to pollution. And it's going to take a force of us to just push each other and say, hey, I have a solution. I want to make the best of what we've got and clean this mess up.
Well, I see all these people offering all these different technologies or whatever to clean up. Kevin Costner said he had something, and then there was all these other people coming out with ideas on how to clean it up.
Let me tell you what happened with Kevin.
Well, is there anything real out there that they can use to just start clean it up, or no? Is it beyond that point now?
Yeah, there are. What we can do is with Kevin, with my friend Kevin Horton and his son Ben. We can go out there and we could put blocks and I need to meet with you so I can show you what we can do. But we can take hydrocarbons and correxit and dispersants. We can take this stuff. We could put blocks out in this water and let the water just shed through these blocks. And this stuff will eat those hydrocarbons. Every chain of those hydrocarbons is like probiotics for the water. We could, and I'm not out there to make money on this. I'm just out there to help to make a solution here. But we could take this stuff. We could put it in blocks, and we could filter out all the hydrocarbons, all of the chemicals in that water, and we could bring this Gulf back. And then I look at our water situation. Well, very cheaply, what we can do is I work with a company. I don't make any money off these guys, but it's called Santevia, www.santevia.com. We could take our water and put it in a gravity filter, and we could clean up our water and have potable drinking water. There are so many solutions, but we have to stop the oil companies. We have to stop them because they're out there, and now they're in Julia Field, the billion-barrel secret. They're out there in more deep water shit. And they are going to destroy our country.
Well, Shell just had an issue with their floating platform out in the Arctic. They said, "Oh, we're not going to have any problems," and then the thing floated off.
Well, and who owns British Petroleum and Royal Dutch Shell? J.P. Morgan and BlackRock. Everybody needs to Google BlackRock. And Matt Taibbi just did an amazing article. And, all the truth is coming out. The truth is coming out that we've been lied to, we've been deceived, we've been screwed over.
Yeah, but let me ask you this, honestly. Do you think that even with all this truth coming out that they're actually going to... I mean, do you think things are going to... I mean, I'm not being a cynic when I ask this. I just ask this because I know people are going to ask this. Do you think anything's going to get done? Because, I could care less if somebody gets in trouble because they didn't spend the money on cleanup or this or that or the other thing, or if somebody made money and lied. I could honestly care less. I want the people that are physically affected by the health, with the health issues, they need to get health care, and they need to get looked after, and that needs to be attached to this leak so that everybody that's sick can get checked out, and it needs to be admitted to, and they just don't want to admit to it because it would cost bazillions of dollars.
Let me tell you what, if they're eating the Gulf seafood, they're screwed. Because I'm going to tell you that I put it, and I'll send this to you. I put something out very early on with a woman named Trisha James, and we put out how the EPA has lied to you, and then now I go into restaurants, really right here in my town, and I say, are you serving Apalachicola oysters? And they're like, yeah. And I say, really? Well, I really want you to go talk to the chef. And they come back and say, oh, no, we don't have Apalachicola oysters. They cannot. Those things are dangerous because they're loaded with ethanol and God knows what else. And now I'm seeing chefs locally. They're buying their stuff up from Maine and up in the really cold waters.
I've seen stories of people in North Carolina getting oysters that were caught down here in the Gulf, and they're opening them up and they're finding crude in them.
Oh, it's sickening.
Ugh.
It's sickening. And why did I get arrested? Why did I get arrested when I was up in Apalachicola? I was screaming dirty oysters. And I was really, really fighting the people that were saying that they're fine, that they were cleaning it up. And I'm like, why did I get arrested? Well, I got arrested because I had a big mouth. And when I went to jail, I was set up. I was set up. A lot of my friends have been set up. We've all been set up. Look at Sherry Foylan, what she's been through up in fighting the tar sands. Look at these people. They're all getting arrested. Well, you know what?
They're throwing people off their property, literally. They just come in and,
they are.
even if the people don't want to sell it,
Mm-hmm.
You see there, I saw the pictures of the one farmer and the state police were out there removing him, and it was formerly his property.
Yeah.
And too bad, the eminent domain, and it was then sold to this company to do whatever they want with. It was just disgusting.
Well, you know what? I keep sending letters. I talked to Rick Scott early on. I talked to Pam Bondi's office. I talked to Kathleen Salibas very early on. They didn't want to hear what I had to say. And the bottom line is, if we don't detox these people and do it in the right way, and I know how to do it the right way, and we don't detox these people, they're going to frickin' die.
Well, a lot of them have. I mean, I was talking to you about before we came on air. There's a lot of videos where people got sick, real bad, right off the bat. Like, I know there's a lot of people that are going to get sick years from now. Yep. That 5, 10 years from now they'll get sick because of the maybe a lower level exposure. But there's people that have already died due to the exposure to not only the oil, because that stuff's toxic.
Lisa Nelson lived in Orange Beach. that girl, right after the oil spill, she was walking down the beach, and she got hit with Corexit. I have a friend, Pete Frizel, right here, not too far from me, that was out in a canoe and got hit with Corexit. And he's sick. And he's starting to get better. But you know what? I'm telling you that it has hit our shores. And can I find a treatment for this? Yes. These guys definitely, we need to put them on really, really some simple detoxification, and we need to get them on far infrared sauna. And I'm looking at, green sauna for their skin. We could help these people. And I've been, there's another group, and everybody needs to get involved in this group.
Can people detoxify themselves, like if they started using things like diatomaceous earth and things like that?
Absolutely.
Would that start to help it? I know it's not going to cure anything, but I'm sure it would help, right?
Right. Absolutely, they can. And there's a group on Facebook called Nurses Rise for Safe Water. There is a friend of mine that is a victim of fracking, and all of New York is being victimized of fracking, and she can help people. We're all trying to help each other, and we are the ones we've been waiting for. We've got to change the situation. We've got to stop the garbage, and we can get people well, but we can't keep doing it if they keep hiding everything. Because people are going back up north when they send their kids down to the Gulf. These kids are coming down to the Gulf, and I'm getting phone calls from people up north that are saying to me, my kid's sick. I said, well, no duh. Your kid's sick because you're sick. Your kid was in the Gulf and eating all this seafood, and it's dangerous. And, the bottom line is, I would stay away from all Gulf shellfish.
I know a lot of the Gulf fishermen won't even go out and fish.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of them, but see, you won't hear that. What you see is the BP commercial with the one fisherman, even if I don't even know if he's a real fisherman, and probably an actor.
He's an idiot.
And he's out there, we're out here, we love Gulf seafood. We're back on track, thanks a lot, BP. And then
and we got these poor people in Louisiana, and they're eating crawfish. I got a report from a lady from California that was in Louisiana, said they're eating crawfish and they think it's mud that's in the crawfish and it's oil. I'm like, these guys are nuts.
So, even into the tributaries and the waterways, the back swamps in there, I would assume it's probably contaminated with Corexit and oil, right?
Very much.
Well, it's so sad. That whole ecosystem's just destroyed.
It destroyed our ecosystem.
And didn't they say BP is no longer financially liable or anything like that? We'll have to get,
now they're playing this game.
Well, you know what? I'm going to pause it right there, and we'll get into it on the other side, because I just noticed the break is going to sneak up on us. So,
all right.
Ladies and gentlemen, you need to check this stuff out. The BP oil leak is, no pun intended, but it's much deeper than what you know. Right back. Don't go anywhere. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. So right before the break, as it came up, I hit Trisha with a question, and I'll let her answer it right now. And then in the last 3 segments, we got a ton of stuff to go over, including, as I promised, the strange deaths associated with this whole thing. So go ahead, Trisha. The floor is yours.
Oh, yeah. Well, I just posted on your page that it was all about the Project Gulf disaster, and I wrote a paper with BK Lim and other people, and the Gulf Stream died, and what people don't realize is that it was dead, and when it died, we had a very, very cold winter in Europe. And when it died, we had these mass deaths of birds and fishes. We had extreme weather conditions and abnormalities. But then, everybody thinks it's so far-fetched, but it's really not. And there's on your page, I posted this. How did the Gulf Stream die? And who died? Well, who died was that Tony Hayward was one sick bastard, in that he said, what would you do if you could not fail? You would do whatever you wanted. And that's what he did. And if Dick Cheney would have not conducted these secret meetings, and then the profitability of all this was insane. And so we lost, our fuel, that fuel is abiotic fuel. Abiotic fuel means without life. Abiotic fuel is also radioactive. Then we lost Thomas B. Manton, who was really an American hero. Then we lost all kinds of people. I had a friend, his name was Thomas B. Manton. Now, Thomas B. Manton did not have any kind of real connection to the internet. He was a very quiet man. Now, Matt Simmons had some connections, and he ended up dead in a hot tub. But Thomas B. Manton was a very quiet man. He didn't argue with people. He just knew what he knew. And then what happened was he didn't have a lot of connections to the internet or anything like that. He was very calm, very quiet, an elderly man. And what happened was they busted him on kiddie porn charges. I was in Florida when they sentenced him, and they put him in really jail with regular people in jail, and he got murdered. He died. Thomas was a good man. And then y'all need to look at, what everybody needs to look at, is that we've been doing a lot of playing around with mosquitoes and genetically modified mosquitoes and all this other stuff. And then very early on, this was way before the oil spill, a friend of mine, her name was Chitra, and she was an Indian woman, and she worked for the University of Florida. Now, Chitra was trying to expose the fact that the state of Florida and our universities, some of our crazy universities, were making these strange, huge, we've been messing around with our nature and our culture and all this stuff for years. We've been messing around with mosquitoes for years and genetically modifying them and doing all this crazy stuff. And you can just look up the Keys and what's going on down there. Anyways, Chitra was getting ready to come out with the fact that they were genetically modifying mosquitoes. And what happened was they've talked about putting vaccines and stuff in mosquitoes. I'm going to pause us right there because we got a break sneaking up on us. Ladies and gentlemen, don't go anywhere. We will be back in a few short, quick minutes. Stay tuned. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. So before we touch on the mosquito thing really quick, I wanna rewind a second back to Matt Simmons. Now, his death is real questionable. He was talking about openly about what was going on. He was on Bloomberg
The videos from Bloomberg were being put on thousands of YouTube channels and getting, thousands and thousands of hits per YouTube channel. So literally hundreds of thousands of views of what he was saying about what was going on. And then suddenly they find him dead in a hot tub. What say you about Matt Simmons' death? Do you think it was a murder?
I say he was murdered. Yep. I say he was murdered very early on. And that was when BP had total control. They had total control of what was going on, what was going in, what was going out. And honestly, I can tell you that the Air Force was, and I can prove this, the Air Force was spraying Corexit. And I spoke before the Pensacola Task Force, and I told them what was going on. They looked at me like I had 3 heads. They wanted me off there, as fast as they could, but I did get 15 minutes in the Escambia Task Force. And I can tell you for a fact that I believe that Matt Simmons was murdered. And he was murdered because he was honest. And he knew what was going on. He knew what was going on. He could tell you what was going on. He's been all over the radio. And then I want everybody to look at Michael DeGree. I went to college with a lot of very, very brilliant people, and that would be Harry Rabin, Michael DeGree. Ira Leffer. I know Ricky Ott personally. If it wasn't for Ricky Ott, she got me into this mess. But if it wasn't for all these people, I would have never been able to put these things together. And Michael DeGree, he died in a helicopter crash over Australia. And he talked about dispersants. He talked about Corexit. And I lived in Santa Barbara. I was there after the oil spill in Santa Barbara. Now, did they use dispersants? Yeah, they did. But that's a totally different ball of wax. In that, when I was back in California in 2009, we had good fish there. I mean, we could eat the fish there, but they didn't use the dispersants in the amount that they used in the Gulf. And you're talking 2 million barrels of oil that came out of that well from hell. Then you're talking about almost 2 million gallons of dispersant that were dumped in that water with 2-butoxyethanol and propylene glycol that we know of. Now, I'm going to tell you, we cannot mess around with bioremediation. We start messing around with the wrong bioremediation, then they will turn that Gulf into a petrochemical algae farm. Now that's dangerous shit. And we're looking at some really dangerous stuff. And then you can go back and you can start looking at J. Craig Ventnor. J. Craig Ventnor was working very early on with Exxon for a cure for or some kind of crazy stuff in order to basically create Cynthia. Are you there?
Yeah. What are they?
Yeah.
What are they? So what they're doing is they're basically turning this into like a. They've turned the
They're
Gulf into like a big laboratory. They're just doing.
They're trying to turn the Gulf into a petrochemical algae farm.
So they're turning. So they're basically it's like a big chemistry set for them now.
Yeah, it is. It is. It most definitely is. I've been doing...
Is there money to be made from this? I mean, why would they do that?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. J. Craig Ventnor is synthetic genomics, okay? You talk about synthetic genomics, that guy is evil. And nobody really understands what he did. And the problem is that J. Craig Ventnor, very early on, took his own DNA, and he was all over. That creep was all over the media, and he was interviewed by a lot of people. But now he's been working with Exxon and with BP and all these other players, and what he's done is he's created a vaccine. And that vaccine is a vaccine for Cynthia. Now, you start looking at all the prototypes, you start looking at all the amoebas, you start looking at all the strange stuff that's going on in that Gulf, and you can track a lot of that back to him.
You know, there was something I heard about, it was something like the blue sickness or something.
That's right.
Is this related to that? Is that what?
Blue Gulf plague.
Yeah,
yep.
That's what. Okay, so I had heard about that, but I didn't really know anything about it. So that's related to this.
J. Craig Ventnor and Exxon Valdez and British Petroleum. They've been messing around with this stuff for years. They have been messing around it for years. And everybody says, oh, my God, you're so crazy. You're a conspiracy theorist. But you know what? I'm a scientist. And I have been studying these guys for years. And years ago, I saw Ventnor. I saw him on Charlie Rose. And he was talking about he had the cure for cancer. He had this, he had that. Well, he took his own genes. He took his own genes, and what he did was he basically replicated those genes in order to create a, quote, cure for cancer. And Charlie Rose was all over it. But now people are starting to realize he's the devil incarnate. You know, we've got a lot of sick people out there that are trying to turn our water into petrochemical algae farms.
That's disgusting.
They have a lot of money to make on that.
Well, that's disgusting.
And they also have vaccines. Now that's sick.
Oh, isn't that convenient?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So let me ask you this. Do you think that some of the sickness that some of the Gulf workers and the people that live there are experiencing? I mean, I know a lot of people are experiencing like toxicity issues from the chemicals and stuff, but do you think a lot of that is also due to whatever this crap is that they're growing out there, and then perhaps maybe they're spraying other stuff? I mean, because I know this was I had seen things about this before, and I had asked people about it, and they really couldn't explain what was going on. So I mean, I'm sure that could have a negative health impact on the people around that area as well.
They may call me crazy. You know, they may call me crazy. They can call me whatever they want. But this has been a huge setup from the very beginning. You know, and listen to what Michael Edwards said. Very early on, I was interviewed by Michael Edwards. He's a really good guy, and he got sick by this. A lot of people I know got really sick from this. And you know, I was up there. I was in Panama City, and I was bringing these workers home to me when I lived in Brooksville, when I was married. And I would bring them home. I would go to Panama City. I would go to these other places, and I felt like Schindler. You know, I couldn't bring all these people home with me. I could only bring one or two or a few of them. And talk to Pete Frizzell. Talk to the people that got sick from this spill. They'll tell you. They will tell you that they were sprayed on. And it's not, and I even have.
I heard a lot of people complaining about the same thing, that they were sprayed on.
Absolutely.
A lot of people said that, and I saw evidence. I saw the videos where you really couldn't see the planes, but you could hear them. And sometimes they had lights going. Sometimes they were running dark, but you would hear the planes flying overhead, and the people would be saying they're spraying. That's them spraying.
Yep.
And like you said, people were finding Corexit in their pools. And why were they turning the sprayers on over the land? What was that about?
Well, let me tell you something about that. That's really interesting. And, people are going to say I'm crazy about this. But 12 miles up the road from me, what they want to do in Florida is they want to expand the Veterans Expressway, okay? They want to expand that area. And I find it really interesting that in Sugar Mill Woods, that these people were sprayed on in Sugar Mill Woods. I was there a month ago. I saw it was a dead zone. Okay, so I want you to think about something that's really interesting. But they want to expand the Veterans Expressway all the way through Florida, okay? Now, I find it very interesting, and this is just supposition on my point, but it's very interesting that they sprayed in the area in Sugar Mill Woods in Homosassa, Florida, 12 miles up from me, and those people are still sick. And it's a dead zone. That whole area is a dead zone. And I find it really interesting that that is the exact region that they want to expand the Veterans Expressway. Call it supposition. You can call it whatever you want. But that's where I'm coming from. This has been the biggest hoax, and it has been the biggest lie that we have ever seen in the history of this country.
It's pretty brutal. I mean,
It is.
The beautiful, pristine beaches on the west coast of Florida. I don't care what anybody says. Oh, they're clean. You can go on them. Yeah, okay. Soon as you get even a tropical storm rolling through the Gulf, it starts to spew up tar balls and all that other crap. And they're still seeing leaks out there. They just don't tell you about it. If it gets put out there, the Coast Guard comes out and says there's nothing wrong with it.
Come on, it's all leaking methane. The Gulf is fractured. Nobody wants to admit that. The Gulf is fractured.
And that's what Matt Simmons was talking about, by the way.
Absolutely. They have fractured that Gulf. I called University of Florida. I called them, and I called the geology department. And I said to them, you know what, we have a problem here, and I'm really concerned that this Gulf is fractured. And they went nuts on me. Come on, man. It's fractured.
Well, there were multiple reports where not only was it Matt Simmons, but other people even came out and said the same thing back in the beginning. I'm going to pause this right there because we got a break sneaking up on us. Ladies and gentlemen, don't go anywhere. Final segment coming up. You gotta look into this about the what we're saying about the Gulf actually being fractured and it wasn't a leaking riser pipe. Seriously, you need to go look into this. We'll be right back. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Final segment. I'm glad I was able to finally get some on to talk about all these issues with the BP oil leak. And again, we covered a lot of ground tonight. Basically, what Trisha and I did was we kind of glazed over almost like an umbrella type cover, if you will, of the scenario. But you need to spend hours and hours and hours looking into little aspect that she talked about. I mean, you'll see videos of people getting harassed. You'll see videos of people talking about their sicknesses. You'll see the oil sheens in the water. You'll see that there's still oil sheens to this day. You'll see the Corexit. You'll see videos of toxic rain. I took video here on the east coast of Florida when it was going on of toxic rain that was coming over here with Corexit that was just all over cars. Other people all over Miami-Dade and Broward County and Palm Beach County were doing the same thing. People down in the Keys were doing the same thing. People all on the West Coast were doing the same thing. So this stuff is the real deal. You need to look into what happened. They did not clean it up. There's a ton of oil just sitting at the bottom of the ocean out there in the Gulf, and there's still stuff leaking. The floor is cracked. The ocean floor out there is cracked. We need to actually pay attention to this. BP did not clean it up. The government did not clean it up. Obama did not snap his fingers and make things float away like he would have you believe. Okay? Nobody did. Anyway, Trisha, final thoughts here. We got about 4 minutes. Final thoughts on tonight's broadcast. Anything you want to throw out there? Solutions, ideas, anything?
Well, the final thoughts are, basically, we have to bioremediate that water, but we have to do it the right way. And there's a way to do that. And people should contact Kevin Horton of Horton Environmental. I think that people need to stop. I mean, all these people are sick. And I keep telling them, stop using these plug-ins and these chemicals in your home. Stop washing your clothes in garbage, because the bottom line is that, we have got to go green, and I mean seriously green. If you're sick, then contact Metametrics Clinical Laboratories. Contact them, because very early on in the spill, I went and I took the course and I got my certification. Go to Metametrics. And they can tell you what the problem is and what your problem is. I'm hoping that the problem is that the big problem is that with 2-butoxyethanol, propylene glycol, I don't care what it is, they should have given those people respirators. Now, the only way to change what is going on is to stop campaign finance and to stop these creeps from being able to take over our government. It's been hijacked in the name of big oil and fracking, and I don't care what you call it. But the bottom line is it's got to stop. And Naples, they are trying to frack Naples. They're trying to oil drill Naples. They don't care, because corporate law is not the people. And we are not about the corporations. The bottom line is that we've got to stop the corporations from running this country. And the corporations are big oil. They are natural gas, which is fracking.
That's scary, by the way, that they're fracking Naples.
Absolutely.
If nobody knows about fracking, go look up the movie Gasland.
Oh,
okay?
my God.
Seriously.
It's amazing. And he's doing Gasland, too.
Just watch them light the one guy's, they turn the faucet on, and he takes a lighter, and he lights his kitchen faucet on fire. Yeah,
absolutely.
Because that's what we need to have down here in Florida.
Right. It's sick. It's sick what they're doing. And the bottom line is, if you want decent water, you can buy, I'm into get off the grid. Get off the electrical grid. There's a company called Santiva, and I don't own any stock in them, but it's www.santevia.com. And you go to that company, and you can get something that sits right on your counter. Stop it with the plastics, for God's sake, because the bottom line is we could bioremediate them, but if we don't stop with the plastics, which are all about chemicals and all about petrochemicals, and stop it with GMOs, and clean up our acts.
Yeah, I agree. We have to do it because that's why we have all this different toxicity on such a massive scale, to everybody all over the country. Trisha, I got to cut us off because the end of the broadcast is actually coming up.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming on and having the courage to talk about all this stuff. Even the stuff that sounds crazy, ladies and gentlemen, we have to look into it. Whether or not we like it, we have to look into it. With that, we are out of time. I love you all, and I will catch you all again live tomorrow night. Stay safe. Educate yourselves.
God bless. Bye-bye.